Batman for the Nintendo Entertainment System, released in 1990 by Sunsoft and based on the 1989 motion picture of the same name, is one of those uncommon exceptions to the rule of video games based on licensed properties back in the day. The general rule being that if a video game was based on a movie or a television show or any similar form of licensed entertainment, you shouldn't get your hopes up that the game will be any good because there's a good chance it wouldn't be. However, Batman is not only a good licensed video game or anything of the sort, but it is also an excellent video game that can stand on its own merits as one of the best games on the NES, and it just so happens to be based on a movie, even if it does take rather large liberties with the source material. The game is your basic side-scrolling platform action game, where the main goal is to navigate your way to the end of the level and defeat the end boss to move on to the next one. Batman starts off with his trusty Bat Fist, which is his main attack, but can access 3 additional weapons once he starts collecting these missile icons that represent ammunition. There's your trademark Batarang, which is a quick short-range weapon, the Bat Spear Gun, which shoots spears at your enemies. Sure, whatever you say. And finally the Bat Dirk, which shoots 3 spinning disc-like things that cover a fair amount of height and can pass through walls. Yeah, the Bat Dirk. Sure, whatever you say. Successful progression in Batman is largely dependent on your mastery of Batman's various tools and skills. While Batman's weapons aren't going to make things that much easier, they do just enough to help out, and you're left to figure out which weapons work best for which situation. Jumping is also a vital function in Batman and key to overcoming the various challenges that await you, whether it be navigating through a level and avoiding its fiendish hazards, or just dealing with a particular pain in the ass. If you tap the A button, you'll do a quick hop. If you press and hold the A button down, you'll do a much higher jump. The game manual refers to this as the Batman jump. I'm completely serious, by the way, it's called a Batman jump. Yeah, figure that one out. Of course, if you hit a wall and press the A button, you'll do a wall jump, useful for reaching higher places and climbing narrow passages. Unlike the wall jump in Strider on NES, the wall jump here is pretty easy to pull off, even by accident. And that's a good thing because wall jumping is a necessary component to survive this game's later levels. And it goes without saying that Batman is a particularly challenging game. Fighting through the streets of Gotham is fairly simple enough to get you acquainted with the controls, but a chemical plant that awaits you in the very next level ramps up the difficulty a couple notches and expects you to have mastered the wall jump ability to survive its meticulously placed hazards. And then there's the opposition that awaits you. Some just run at you, some shoot at you, and then you'll have some really aggressive enemies that move about quickly and want to rip your goddamn head off. And then you have the bosses, which prove to be a formidable challenge that requires some effort, some memorization of its patterns, and maybe a little bit of luck to conquer. And that's the thing with Batman that really sells the overall game. The challenge is no doubt great, but it is fair. The game is difficult, but never feels cheap or artificial. There's never an instance where you'll mess up on a particular section and feel cheated because of poor mechanics or anything of the sort. If you fuck up, it's your fault and you gotta try again. The curve is gradual and fair, starts off easy, gets progressively harder. The final level of the game, taking place in Cathedral, is a proper finale to the main game that is decidedly difficult and will push you to the limits and test your skills to the fullest. Controlling this game is sublime. All the tools required are at your disposal. There's always going to be a segment in each level where you can grind for ammo and health, and you have unlimited continues. So you do have a fair shot here, and it's also quite a bit of fun to bounce off walls and beat up ninjas and shoot your gun and your spear gun, your thing that shoots missiles and in the most basic terms possible, Batman looks absolutely stunning. The Dark Knight himself looks particularly good, and I like the added touch of the cape flapping in the wind if you remain idle enough. The enemy characters are good looking and fairly detailed, such as the gunmen who pull out their firearms to shoot. But more than anything, what really makes the game is the level design and the overall visual styling. This is clearly evident when you're roaming the streets of Gotham City, as the dark, gothic atmosphere is perfectly captured here. Each of the 5 levels here are their own individual beasts with unique aesthetics, and they all look different enough, but they all meld together nicely so they're all part of the same world. And then there are the cutscenes, whether it be the Batmobile driving down some street, or a brief mugshot of the Joker taunting you. These are equally well done and keep with the quality of the game, overall. What I don't like is the introduction flicker that fucks with the capturing of footage. That could kiss my ass. The rest of the game, though, looks brilliant and suits the material just fine. Another selling point that makes the game is the wonderfully composed soundtrack. While there is no sign of the classic Danny Elfman composed theme or any of the other musical cues from the movie, the music that is featured here is perhaps some of the best NES musical pieces that perfectly set the tone of the game. Sunsoft games on the NES are well renowned for their awesome music, and Batman holds up to that standard of excellence here. The theme that plays during the first and final levels of the game is one of the standouts, sure, but the rest of the game's music is equally compelling and exhilarating stuff. Sound effects are fairly standard fare, nothing special about them other than they don't distract from the musical cues. Audio here really, overall, is excellent. Batman is one of those video games that gets it. It gets it and nails it. It manages to be a slickly made video game with solid controls and an impressive overall presentation. It captures the essence of the source material while taking its own liberties to a point, and perhaps most importantly, it's simply a fun game to play, and the high difficulty present here doesn't detract from the overall enjoyment of the game. And that's what any good game should strive to be. Give it a go if you haven't already. It's plenty good stuff.